The views, information, and opinions expressed during the following program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent the views of Access Communications, its representatives, or its employees.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Weyburn City Council held in the council chambers at 6 p.m. Monday, May 27th, 2024. I want to welcome all you to this council meeting and welcome all the council and staff here. And it's good to be here this evening. First thing that we want to do is approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting and strategic planning and priorities meeting held May 13th, 2024. If I could have a motion, please.
Your Worship, I'll make the motion that the minutes of the regular council meeting and the Strategic Planning and Priorities Committee meeting held May the 13th, 2024 be accepted as presented.
Your Worship, I'll second that.
Go ahead. You'll second that? Yes. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Additions to the agenda. Mr. Warren.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. There's no additions from administration tonight.
Council. Seeing none, there's no public hearings and notices, no delegations, proclamations, or petitions. There's no reports of standing committees. There's no consent agenda. What we have now are just simply the motions. If you would, please. Cash activity for March. Laura. Cash activity? Somebody wrote Laura here, but it's not. So the motion, please.
Your Worship, I move that the cash activity report for the period ending March 31st, 2024 be accepted as presented.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. The 2024 election, municipal election, City Clerk Tina, would you would please?
Okay, so the 2024 municipal election is set to take place on November 13th, 2024. In January 2024, there were numerous amendments made to the Local Government Elections Act 2015. So the following amendments regarding the flexibility and authority of returning officers came into place and are worth noting. They have the authority to determine polling areas and polling locations. They have the authority for establishing polling places in hospitals and personal care facilities, and they're transferring the authority to make decisions on homebound voting from council to the returning officer, and giving emergency powers to temporarily postpone an election if there's an emergency or inclement weather. Authority includes ability to extend hours at a polling place and to suspend the voting for up to a week at one or more polling places. In June 2020, Council passed bylaw 2020-3418 to provide the use of automated vote tabulating equipment. Section 47 of the Local Government Elections Act states that the administrator of the municipality is the returning officer unless the council appoints another person as returning officer at least 90 days before the election day, and that the returning officer is responsible for all matters relating to the election as provided in the Act. The quote received for the automated vote tabulating equipment and election services from election systems and software came in at $11,955. And Section 33 of the Local Government Act states that council must approve the election costs. Section 52 of the Local Government Elections Act states that council must set the remuneration for elected officials, and rates for the remuneration of the elected officials have been listed in Appendix A. The budget for the election is $35,000. Important dates to note for this election are that the notice of call for nominations is September 24th. Nomination day is October 9th. Mail-in ballots applications open and close from September 1st to November 12th at 4 p.m. Advance polls are November 7th and 9th, and they're set at the Credit Union Spark Center. Homebound polls will be November 6th and 7th as required. Special polls are going to be on November 13th at the Weyburn General Hospital, Weyburn Special Care Home, and Tattagua View. And election day is November 13th at the Credit Union Spark Center. Do we want to look at the Appendix A? So these rates are what we paid at the by-election in 2023, and they were the rates in 2020 as well. I reached out to other municipalities to see what their fees were, and we're either on par or a little bit above in some situations still. So I think it would be safe to set it at that for this year. My recommendations would be that the city clerk be appointed as a returning officer for the 2024 municipal election as per Section 47 of the Local Government Elections Act, and that council approve the cost of the automated vote tabulating equipment and election services costs for $11,955, and that council set the remuneration for election officials as shown in Appendix A as per Section 52 of the Local Government Elections Act.
Your worship. First of all, Tina, I'd like to congratulate you on your first big report, and very well done.
Thank you.
Excellent. I'd like to make a motion that the city clerk be appointed as a returning officer for the 2024 municipal election, that the automated vote tabulating equipment and election services costs for $11,955 be approved, and that the remuneration for elected officials as shown on Appendix A be accepted as presented as per the Local Government Elections Act 2015.
Worship, I will second that motion.
Discussion? Mr. Richard.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I agree, Tina. Great job on the report. And you had to do a lot of research, so I appreciate that. The only question I have, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I want to be sure, the vote tabulating equipment, it's an important distinction. It's not an electronic voting machine. It simply counts the ballots that are hand marked.
Yes, it counts the ballots. So we did use this in 2020, but we did not use it for the by-election. And yeah, I think I've been doing some research, and it sounds like it's just, if not more effective than hand counting the ballots. When I've read a couple of reports where they do both, where they do the automated equipment and then they hand count. The hand count's wrong, they recount, and the automated equipment is what was correct in the first place. So.
Right. And then just one final question. These are quite common. We're not the only community using these. I know we didn't use them in 2016. We did use them in 2020, but correct. I think most of the cities are using them.
Yeah, right? We're being encouraged to use this equipment. So
yeah. Great work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tina, further to Councillor Richard's questions, is it fair to say that these tabulated machines are an asset to a group of, pseudo volunteers who are going to be exhausted by the time it comes time to use them?
Yeah, it's, like election workers are busy from 8 o'clock in the morning till, past 9 o'clock at night. And when you can take 25 minutes to count something as opposed to, hours, it's very helpful.
Yeah, I think anything we can do to make their lives easier.
And Tina, it was budgeted for in this year's budget, correct?
Yeah, we're budgeted for $35,000, and that was for a part of that. So
good.
Yeah,
thank you.
You're going to open the ask for election workers at roughly what date again?
I'm not 100% sure on that yet. September 24th is the notice for call for nominations, but I don't have a date set for workers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then last thing is that, just so that people are aware, again, the people that can vote in this civic election, they have to be residents, not just own property, have to be residents of the city of Weyburn for 6 months, at least 6 months, or 2 months.
It's
6 months. 6 months, yeah. and they have to be Canadian citizens.
And a Canadian citizen, yeah.
Right. Okay. Other than that, any other? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Landfill concrete crushing RFP.
Thank you. Concrete crushing is required at the City of Weyburn landfill. The last time concrete crushing was completed at the landfill was in January of 2022. Along with the regular acceptance of concrete over the last 2 years, the city has been able to separate piles of dirt and concrete since the removal of the internal power lines and poles. Crushing the concrete to the size of 2" minus allows the city to reuse the material as a subbase in our road repairs, as well as a more solid base for utility dig repairs. The landfill has an allotted department budget for capital spending of $120,000 for concrete crushing. So on April 26th, the RFP was posted on the city's new bidding portal, bids and tenders, SAS tenders, in the City of Weyburn website for landfill concrete crushing. Quotations were to be received by the City of Weyburn by May 17th at 1 p.m. and a total of 5 tenders were received. The bids are summarized below, excluding taxes. So basically they give us a price per ton is how they calculate it. So based on a full bid assessment, Swayze Concrete Limited meets the tender and operational requirements as outlined by the city. As such, the following is recommended. Landfill concrete crushing be awarded to Swayze Concrete Limited at a bid price of $11.75 per ton to a maximum of $120,000, including taxes.
Your Worship, I'd make a motion that the landfill concrete crushing be awarded to Swayze Limited at a bid price of $11.75 per ton to a maximum of $120,000, including taxes.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion. Discussion. Now, Jennifer, when they crush this and it's going to be used for land base, all the metal, they have magnets in there pulling all the metal out?
Yep.
Okay, because again, we don't need contaminated stuff coming up through with nails and spikes and all that stuff.
Nope.
And so, okay. Good. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. The library roof replacement tender. Andrew.
Thanks, Your Worship. So as part of a multi-year plan to complete numerous roof replacements on city-owned facilities, and based on previous budgeting reports conducted in 2023, $185,000 was allocated through the 2024 budget to replace a large section of roof at the Weyburn Public Library that we've been experiencing issues with. A request for tender to have the existing roof section at the public library removed and replaced was posted on SAS tenders with a closing date of May 9th at 2 p.m. 3 qualifying bids were received. All the bids received were reviewed by RMIS Engineering out of Regina with their recommendations then presented to city staff. So you'll see we received 3 bids ranging in price from $199,000 to $602,000 to replace the same section of roof. So during the 2024 budget process, the Leisure Services Department identified that the Weyburn Public Library roof system, it was a main priority for replacement as certain sections have failed and require immediate replacement. Consultant services were rendered in 2023 to conduct inspections and provide a budget forecast of $185,000 to conduct all work associated with the replacement. Following the approval, the city engaged in a contract with RMIS Engineering to conduct some on-site additional assessments, create our specifications and drawings, and manage the tender process associated with this project, as well as oversee contractor management requirements for the eventual replacement of the roof section that was identified. If awarded as presented, the total cost expected for the replacement of the roof system, along with the necessary engineering fees, equate to $214,758, which is $29,785 over the 2024 budget allotment. So although the total cost associated with the roof replacement is greater than the 2024 budget allowed for, this project is necessary as the roof section is beyond its useful life, and we've been experiencing quite a few water issues there over the past few years, jeopardizing other components of the facility and creating some concerns over health and safety. Therefore, it's recommended that the proposed roof replacement at the Weyburn Public Library be awarded to Duncan Roofing Limited for a total amount of $199,000 plus taxes, with all project overages being funded through reserves.
Do you have a motion, please?
Your worship, I'll make the motion that the proposed roof replacement at the Weyburn Public Library be awarded to Duncan Roofing for a total amount of $199,000 plus taxes, with all project overages being funded through reserves.
Your worship, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Thank you, worship. Andrew, I know it says in your report, but when do you hope to have the roof replaced?
If awarded to Duncan Roofing, the completion date that they stated on their bid was October 30th, 2024. So we would use RMIS engineering to manage them to hit that deadline. And if they miss that deadline, then we do have some built-in verbiage that we can go back to the contractor for damages.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Yankee?
Andrew, noting that all three bids came in above what we had expected, what do you attribute the overage to?
Well, I mean, with any budget forecast, there's usually a plus or minus a certain percentage. Looking back at the reports, they said it could be within 25% of the budget factor that they gave us. So if you do the math, we're still kind of within that amount. But a lot of it, I think, as with everything else, we've seen lots of inflationary costs with things. And then demand of contractors is also kind of high, and trying to get people out here to do the project as well. So those are all some factors I think that maybe factor into it.
There's quite a difference in price between 200,000 and 600,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're all provided the same specifications and drawings and list of requirements that they have to perform to complete the work. So they all bid on the same project.
That's quite a difference. Call the question. Well done work on that. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Although we had a bit of overages, could have been the only bid at like 400,000 more. So that's very good. Introduction of bylaws. Bylaw number 2024-3482, short-term borrowing.
Your worship, before we get into this, I need to declare conflict of interest. I work at a financial institution across the street. And
Yeah, your worship, I also need to declare conflict of interest. I'm on the board of directors of that financial institution.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Laura.
So at the April 8th, 2024 regular council meeting, City Council approved the overage of the First Avenue paving project for $662,760.67 with the intent to utilize the City of Weyburn's line of credit for the overage. The current short-term borrowing bylaw 2003-3000 with the Weyburn Credit Union has a limit of $500,000 at a rate of 4.5%. So an amendment to the short-term borrowing bylaw to a maximum of $1 million with a prime rate or with a rate of prime less 1% is required to facilitate the overage of the First Avenue paving project. With an increase to $1 million, the City of Weyburn will still be in compliance with the city's debt limit of $20 million. After council gives first reading at this meeting, public notices will be published in accordance with the city's public notice policy. Notices will be advertised in the June 5th and June 12th edition of the Weyburn Review and posted at City Hall and on the city's website. So council's options are option 1, council to give first reading to bylaw 2024-3482, being a bylaw to amend the short-term borrowing bylaw to $1 million with a rate of prime less 1%. Or option 2, council refuse to give first reading to bylaw 2024-3482 and provide the refusal based on the following reasons. Any officer making a motion for refusal shall provide reasons for the refusal. Staff's recommendation is option 1, council give first reading to bylaw 2024-3482, being a bylaw to amend the short-term borrowing bylaw to $1 million with a rate of prime less 1%.
Your worship, I move that bylaw 2024-3482, being a bylaw to amend the short-term borrowing bylaw to $1 million with a rate of prime less 1%, be given a first reading.
I'll second that, your worship.
Question?
Hello. This bylaw is in place for this exact reason, for unexpected costs, so that we can pay for, like, say, any items that come up unexpectedly. And then it's also a demand loan, I would suspect, is it?
Yeah, they said we can, the repayment terms are basically as we make payments. So we'll set it up so we'll make payments over like a 5-year period to
Right, so
get
it
off.
can be accounted for in the next budget going forward in following years.
Laura, who sets the 20 million? That was the question was asked to me. Who set our 20 million maximum?
So we have to apply to the province for that, and it's based on our demand and like what we've needed in the past. So when we got the loan for the Spark Center, we had to get that increased.
Because I do know that there's other cities that are like, I think one unnamed city to the west of us, way to the west, they were like 85 million in the negative.
Yeah. So
how would they have gotten so high?
Typically the province they'll only increase your debt limit if you have a project like for that debt limit. You can apply. So like before we had the Spark Center loan, our limit was 16 million. And then the loan was 15 million. We knew we were getting pretty close to it. So we applied and they gave us to 20.
Okay. So we're always under the watchful eye of the province.
But
we're always under the watchful eye of the province.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions? Again, the Premier's statement: the cities only exist at the leisure of the government. So, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Moving on, Cheryl Lee, if you would, please, and we'll get the other members back in. We are talking about bylaw 2024-3483, a swimming pool bylaw.
Your worship, we have to wait till the councillors are back in the room before we can move forward.
Okay. We'll start again. Charlie, if you would, please. Bylaw 2024-3483, swimming pool bylaw. Report, please.
Okay. The City of Weyburn, through its zoning bylaw 2020-3412, does not currently have any regulations regarding proper permits, setbacks, or approved locations for private swimming pools. As such, no permits have been issued or inspections completed for such installations, leaving only recommended setbacks to be adopted from Section 5.1.15, accessory uses of the current zoning bylaw. Within the current City of Weyburn zoning bylaw, there's no clear definition of swimming pools, nor are there any standards in place for the city to guide such activities. Research found that Weyburn is one of the only major cities or towns in Saskatchewan that does not have any regulations in place for privately owned swimming pools or hot tubs. There has been an increase in requests from residents for information surrounding regulations for installing swimming pools in their yards. Staff had to do extensive research by reviewing the city's swimming pool bylaws, other city swimming pool bylaws, as well as the swimming pool standards issued by the government of Saskatchewan to guide the development of this proposed bylaw. Building codes also had to be reviewed to determine what codes would guide the building officer's inspections of any pools or hot tub installations. Deck reviews and recommendations from the building officer would also be used as a guide for any above ground pool or hot tub placements. Swimming pools are an accessory use to permitted use, and a development and building permit will be required for future pool installations, as well as plans showing the locations in the yard, in addition to the depth and dimension of the proposed swimming pool. Fences and enclosures specifications must also be identified. If council wishes to consider implementing the swimming pool bylaw, the city's zoning bylaw would need to be amended to address future swimming pool developments. If implemented, the bylaw will regulate future pool and hot tub installations, as well as the maintenance of any existing swimming pools and hot tubs. It is recommended that the Weyburn City Council gives first reading to bylaw 2024.3483 at this meeting and direct administration to bring the bylaw back for a second and third reading for a future meeting.
Motion, please.
Your worship, I would move that bylaw 2024-3483, being a swimming pool bylaw, be given a first reading.
I'll second that, your worship.
Discussion. Go ahead.
Thanks, your worship. First off, thank you, Shirley and Patrick, for working on this. I told you earlier today, I thought we already had this bylaw. So this was a good learning experience for me. I do have a couple of questions. First off, and I think probably my first question is directed to the Director of Engineering. In this bylaw, it says that when we drain our pool, we can't drain it down the back alley into the storm sewer. It has to go into the sanitary sewer, if I've read that correctly. I think I have.
Yes.
Can you help me understand what difference, why that has to be that way?
So with the sanitary sewer, it goes out to our lagoons where we can control that and we can process it through, so we can do a proper release in the end. If we just send it down the back alley or into the storm system, you're essentially going to go into your groundwater eventually, and we can't have chemicals and chlorine and all that going into that system. But with the sanitary system, we can actually process it and manage it properly to ensure we're doing our environmental due diligence.
Good, thank you. If I may, keep going, thanks. Next question was around, oh, and by the way, I think I have had very few questions. I thought this was very well done, particularly how you've laid out the specifications for the depth and whatnot. But I am a little bit stumped on section 9. Sorry, I thought I was at it. Here. It says this, the requirements, there's lots of times that there are exemptions for this, so I appreciate that very much. But the requirements for the bylaw do not apply to an above ground pool, provided 1 and 2 make good sense to me. 3, I just want a little clarification. It says that the sides of an above ground pool shall be a minimum of 1.2 meters in height from the finished grade, and any climbable fixture on the exterior of the pool wall to the top of the rail of the pool wall. Can you just help us, can you just clarify that a little bit, why that's in there, and give me an example of what that would mean?
Okay, so when we're doing our research and we're looking on the regulations provided from the swimming pool regulations, other bylaws that other towns had implemented. So basically what it's saying that if Patrick, so for the above ground pools, if it extends that height, then it will have to have other fixtures in place, like a deck probably, right?
Yeah, so basically, the 1.2 meters is the height from, so if it's an above ground pool and you can walk around it, it's that height and not climbable, so that, for example, a small child couldn't go up to it and climb into it and fall in and then not have a way out type deal. So it's to stop that.
Right. So, and I think the wording says that. I maybe was just having a hard time wrapping my head around. So it is, if it's less than 1.2 meters in height above grade, it would need a barrier.
The enclosure,
around.
yes.
Correct.
If it's more than that, it wouldn't, because
it's already high enough.
It's high enough that you,
as long as it's not climbable, basically.
Right.
And most of the above ground pools that are permanent ones are kind of like a smooth metal that isn't exactly climbable either. So,
perfect.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
Thanks for the clarification. Thanks,
So
Worship.
all three of these things have to be met if do not apply to the bylaw, right? And they're, because like these temporary hot tubs, they are only this high, but you don't have to have them fenced. Because there's caps on top of them that are locked.
Yeah, so we do have regulations for the hot tubs. If we scroll up to
the other thing I was going to say about this above ground pool, so there you have a number, if you just move it back up to the above ground pool, just up, number 2, it said, when the pools are not, if you just move it up again, just before you get to the hot tubs. No, the other way. Move it down, I guess. There it says, is temporarily installed during use and moved whenever the pool is not in use, meaning not in use, or shouldn't it say not in use for the season?
Yes, so not in use for the season. So if it's a pool that can be uninstalled, packed away, the bylaw does not apply to it.
Yeah.
It's a permanent, we're looking at permanent fixtures.
I would recommend there you add the words for the season, because then it can be construed for it's not in use. Does that mean not in use? Like I'm not using it today, so every time I've got to pack it down. When I'm not using it for a week, I have to pack it down. No.
Yeah, that is a part of the definition as well. So it not just season, but once you're not using it and you can like deflate it, fold it up, put it away.
So a lot of people will have these inflated for the summer, for the summer,
right?
But they're not using it, so they fill it up now for the weekend, and then the start of the season, and then you just leave it there for the kids.
Yeah.
And you're not using it tonight, but you're going to use it tomorrow night. You're not going to start unfilling it and filling it again.
No, so in a case where you have that type of pool in your yard, the bylaw would not apply to it. So once it can disassemble, then it doesn't apply. Whether you use it for a month, a day, it won't apply to it. Once it can pull apart and you put it away, then it wouldn't apply to it.
And then just go back to the hot tubs, just because there's a lot of people with hot tubs. Yeah, okay. All right. So then again, so long as it's basically the hot tub, it's got to cover. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
Just one more.
John, I was going to say John first. Sure.
Just a little clarification on this. Section 17, our gates, doors, all other entrances to the swimming pool area must be locked by a self-closing device. Does that just mean, does the gate actually have to have a lock on it, or is it just a latched gate?
So we do have gates that once it's closed, it's locked. So it could be a latch, it could be a code, however you install your gate, as long as it closes and not easily opened.
Okay, so it actually has to have a locking device.
A locking device.
Okay. All right, because I was wondering about that in comparison to having an actual locking device on the hot tub, because they seem to contradict one another. One didn't seem to have a locking device, whereas the pool is easier to get into than a hot tub.
Well, with the pool, the hot tubs are normally covered, but with the pools, it has to have that enclosure, and then that's where the self-closing or locking device comes into place.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I understand.
Well,
yeah, I thank you also for this bylaw, and I think residents have to understand that this isn't really overreach by the city. It's all these rules and bylaws are in place for the safety of neighbors and the users of this. So I think it's very important that people do look into this if they are putting in any type of hot tub or swimming pool prior to going ahead. And thank you both for putting that forward.
Jackie?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for putting this together. One point of clarification. Point 8 says that requirements not apply to above ground pool, provided some specifics. And then in the drainage section, it opens by saying all private swimming pools. Do the drainage rules apply to above ground pools or not?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, how is that going to be enforced? I guess my concern here is that for existing above ground pools that don't have a drain mechanism, I don't want to find us in a situation where we're telling people they have to run a garden hose and leave their front door open all night so we can run into a bathtub in the basement.
In terms of existing pools or hot tubs that are currently in the city, we have to kind of grandfather them into this, and the bylaw will come into effect in terms of maintenance, doing any upgrades, and as you said, drainage. I know drainage might be a little difficult to see, but once this goes through, we're going to be doing some public engagement, getting the information out there, letting people know that once they're draining their hot tubs, it has to go down the city sewage.
So are you going to grandfather some of the stuff in or not?
Yes, we are.
So I would do this for you and then give you this advice, seeing that we had this issue when we got with the pet bylaw, because when we had the dog and cat bylaw, there was nothing said about grandfathering in. We just kind of left it loose, and this becomes an issue that nothing is written down, so that it should be actually written down that certain times, certain things are written in. And I'll go back to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. The Occupational Health and Safety Act will say certain stairs and scaffoldings are allowed if they are prior to this, or were constructed prior to this date. And so it's not like we're doing something off the side. Occupational Health and Safety even puts it in the grandfathering one. But a grandfathering section should be put into here for things that are constructed already. Okay. And so that should be made clear before this bylaw goes forward, right?
I understand that it's grandfathered, and that's great, but it's also current owner grandfathered, correct?
Correct.
So I think that particularly hot tubs is an issue that we'll need to address with realtors, right?
Yeah.
And just to go to the clarity too, it's maintenance too.
Yeah,
right?
maintenance is a part of it.
Sorry, Shirley. And that's correct, right? So what's happening is you're asking for grandfathering. It's something that we can put in place, but maintenance is a key part of this too. So people who currently have these pools or hot tubs, if they do any maintenance on those, they fit within the bylaw.
Right, and that's correct. And that's just like anything else. And so I'll make sure that certain things are done and they're good. But as you say, if they're going to do maintenance and change, then as soon as you start changing what was there, then everything starts flipping and changing as per our building codes and everything. As soon as you do major stuff.
Yeah, so once maintenance starts, then they have to go according to the bylaw.
Right. Go ahead.
Thanks, Richard. Just two more things. I was the one that brought up about the height of the pool, but none of this applies when the pool is less than 2 feet deep, right? So the little kiddie pools and that obviously won't have a 4-foot wall around them, that kind of thing. None of that applies. So I appreciate that. And I guess the final thing I would say is I would encourage folks, if you've got concerns or questions about how this would impact your pool or your idea for a pool, come to City Hall, to Shirley or Patrick, right? Either one of you, to ask your questions. We're only giving this first reading tonight so that people have time to work through that. So I think you've done the right things here. Thank you.
Just to answer that question to Councilor Richards, we can also post this on our city website. We've done that for past bylaws for people to have looked through and any questions they have. We can work with our communications department, have that added as well for people to not just hear what they're hearing tonight, but actually read the bylaw themselves and see that way. We can do that. Thanks.
I was just thinking, does anybody know those Canadian Tire pools, inflatable pools? They're not 4 feet. 1.2 meters. They're about 3 meters.
Well, we're not going to consider those ones really permanent either, right? Because they're inflatable. They don't have like the solid walls or anything like that.
But I'm just saying, that's why I asked, because you have 3 things listed there. Do all three things, do they have to check the boxes off of all 3 things?
Yeah, I mean, those ones would be considered the temporary installation, right? Because there's not a permanent structure. We're more targeting like the permanent structure ones, even in terms of the above ground ones. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I do think we need clarity on what is going to be grandfathered in terms of drainage. Because just doing some quick napkin math here, if you have an existing pool of 40,000 liters, which is relatively small, but would apply, you are draining it into the city sewers not faster than 90 liters per minute. You're looking at 7.5 hours of draining, and that's if you have a good sized hose. I think 90 is probably pretty high. So we're asking people to have a way to run something into their house, which probably does not have existing infrastructure, and have doors and stuff open for, I think, an unreasonable amount of time. We're going to get this question. I think we need to have an answer for it.
Yeah. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to the grandfathering, like that's going to be considered maintenance, I think. So once this bylaw passes, I think it would be in place for everybody for draining their pool. But in terms of how we actually do the drainage, maybe Jen can.
So yeah, the people are going to have to look at their pool and they're going to have to find out what kind of discharge system they have. As someone who does have a pool, most pools do not get fully drained unless you have a situation of a rail line replacement or anything. You actually, most of them will leave the water and you'll drain below skimmers. Those larger pools, with most of them, you're actually not draining full on them. Yeah, it's going to take some time for people to drain their pools, but I mean, there's usually a window, especially if you're shutting it down yourself or you're paying somebody in to come shut it down. You can drain it over time. So it is not going to be ideal, but I also don't believe that draining it down people's back alleys and having all the neighbors call that we have a water leak in the area is an ideal situation either, that we have let go for a lot of years. And I think now that we have this bylaw, people are going to have to start adhering to it. And we need to ensure that we're protecting our waterways, because water is a very precious resource. And I believe that going down the sewer systems where we can adequately handle it and treat it is a better option than sending it back into our groundwater or waterways. So.
I don't want to get into groundwater, the issue of what is being drained in our groundwater. This is not the time. But anyway, you're right. We can't have chemicals going into our groundwater as such, and it needs to go down and be properly treated. What we need to do now is, do you have to, and I'm going to put a question to administration here, Minister, do we wait and just table this until next meeting simply because we have requested some changes to the bylaw? I believe so.
No, the recommendation from administration is to have first reading tonight. If you have any changes to that bylaw, we can bring that for the second and third reading. We've done that in the past. The recommendation put in front of you tonight from administration is to have first reading for this tonight.
Okay, because I just thought that you had to have first reading done as a corrected bylaw.
No, if you have any changes towards that bylaw, we can bring it back and show that within the second and third reading back to council. We did that previously when we did I just did that 2 meetings ago. When we did our OCP, when we did our district plan, I brought back amendments to the second and third reading. Okay. So council can do a first reading if that's a recommendation from us as administration. And then if you have any changes, we can note that through the second and third readings.
Good. And I guess I apologize that I was out of order as to how we were supposed to do this, because we had no recommendation. We should have had all this discussion after we did the, first reading. But go ahead, first reading. Go ahead.
I've already made the motion, Your Worship.
Oh, did?
Yep. Yeah, the motion's already on the table, Your Worship.
Okay, I time warped to that. I missed that. Okay, sorry. I guess we did it right then.
This means you were in order.
Yeah, I was in order, yes. Time warped there somehow. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimous. So that will come back, and then that will be posted for people who wish to come and speak to it.
Yeah, Your Worship. So I put a plan in place that we'll have this posted this week, and we'll bring second, third reading back on June 24th. And
so then anybody at that time, which wish a week before the meeting, before the June 24th, should make notice to you that they wish to come and speak.
If they wish to speak, I would recommend, if anyone has any questions, to reach out to our Planning Development Department. Charlie and Patrick have done a lot of work on this file, and they'll be able to answer any questions they have. And they're open to have meetings with anyone who wants to have questions that way as well. But if someone does want to attend council, they can reach out to our city clerk and to attend that council meeting if they'd like to.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Unfinished business, there's none. New business, there is none. There is one on new business, and it is the discretionary use development permit, Pump Jack Saloon and Steakhouse. Shirley, you're up again.
A discretionary use development permit application has been received for an open air concert at Pump Jacks on June 4th to 7th, 2024 during the oil show. The subject property is 596 18th Street North at the corner of 18th Street and the 1st Avenue Northeast Service Road. The zoning bylaw contains regulations regarding temporary uses with open-air rock concerts and similar attractions being high-impact uses. Section 5.9.2b of the zoning bylaw requires that open-air rock concerts and similar attractions shall require a development permit and follow the discretionary use process. Pump Jacks is proposing to host an outdoor event with a tent setup until Saturday, June 8th, 2024, cornhole grounds for a competition, as well as a live band, resulting in it being classified as high-impact temporary use. As a discretionary use, a neighborhood notice is required to be sent out to all property owners within a 200-meter radius of the subject property, which notifies them of the application and the opportunity to provide their concerns and feedbacks to council. Comments and concerns from the neighborhood notices have been received and have been attached to this report. Neighbors expressed their concerns about the end time of the outdoor portion of the event as it is being held during the week, and they're worried they will not receive adequate sleep. Previous end times of the event resulted in the same issues residents were concerned about. We do have the site plan. The outdoor event is proposed to take place at Pump Jacks in a tent to the east of the building, with music playing approximately from 8 p.m. to midnight. The event will take place June 4th to 7th, 2024, during the oil and gas show hosted here in Weyburn. The applicants are planning on the music acts being wrapped up by midnight to mitigate some noise concerns and complaints that have been received in the past years. The application was circulated to applicable city departments for review to ensure any concerns could be addressed. The following feedback was provided. From the fire department, the National Fire Code and National Building Code have sections applicable to tents, so the following would apply to this event and should be included as conditions on the permit. Tents must have a fire rating. Installation must comply with the National Building Code. A minimum of 2 exits, which require signage. As per the NFC and NFPA, 10 portable fire extinguishers are required with a maximum travel distance to any extinguisher of 75 feet. A fire safety inspection is required to be completed by Weyburn Fire Department prior to the event. From the police department expressed some concerns about the event and the noise complaints that have been received in past years regarding this event. This end time would be earlier in the past years. The noise bylaw does allow for exemptions under Section 4.1A for sounds authorized by permits issued by the city manager or their delegate. Therefore, the following conditions should be included on the permit. Live music shall be permitted until 12 a.m. midnight on June 4th to 7th as per the exemption granted. Live music shall cease at 12 a.m. and all noise after 12 a.m. shall comply with the noise bylaw. The volume of noise shall be reasonable at the discretion of a peace officer. The zoning bylaw, section 5.9, regulates temporary uses, classifies them into two categories: low impact and high impact. Open air rock concerts and similar attractions are considered high impact and requires that they go through the discretionary use development permit process to ensure neighborhood notices are circulated and council approval is received. Section 5.9.3 provides standards for temporary uses, which require that high impact uses meet the following conditions: have adequate washroom facilities and on-site parking. Required landscaping and parking areas for the principal use may not be occupied by the temporary use. Event shall not obstruct pedestrian or vehicular circulation, including vehicular site triangles. Adequate refuse containers shall be made available and the site must be kept clean. Upon completion, all structures, associated materials, and signage must be removed and the site left in a neat and tidy condition. Temporary uses are permitted for a maximum of 3 days. The proposed temporary use is only for 3 days. Neighborhood concerns. Concerns have been expressed from neighboring property owners about the noise impacts on their properties from the event. Staff have addressed these concerns by limiting the hours of the live music to end end later than midnight, which is amenable to the police department. After midnight, the Weyburn police can enforce the noise bylaw and ask that they shut down the live music if necessary. The permit will require that the site be left in a neat and tidy condition following the event, which should mitigate concerns about litter. This can also be addressed under the property maintenance bylaw. So we have two options here, decision options. 1, approve the development permit 2024.012 for open air concert at 596 18th Street on June 4 to 7, 2024, subject to the following conditions. An inspection from the fire department shall be required upon installation of tents and associated structures and equipment. Tents must have a fire rating. Installation must comply with the National Building Code. A minimum of 2 exits which require signage. As per NFC and NFPA, 10 portable fire extinguishers which are required with a maximum travel distance to any extinguisher of 75. Live music shall be permitted until 12 a.m. on June 4th to 7th as per the exemption granted. Live music shall cease at 12 a.m. and all noise after 12 a.m. shall comply with the noise bylaw. The volume of noise shall be reasonable at the discretion of a peace officer. The applicants shall obtain required approvals and licenses from the Saskatchewan Liquor and Gaming Authority for the serving and consumption of alcohol on site. Arrangements must be made for adequate washroom facilities. Adequate refuse containers shall be provided on site, and the site must be kept clean. And upon completion of the event, all structures, associated material, and signage shall be removed and the site left in a neat and tidy condition. Option 2, refuse the development permit 2024.012 for an open air concert at 596 18th Street on June 4 to 7 for the following reasons. Reasons for refusal would have to be provided by the person making the motion. So the staff recommendation, the proposal complies with the requirements of the zoning bylaw in terms of temporary use requirements, washrooms, refuse containers, timeframes, etc. The proposed use is consistent with the principal use as a licensed establishment, and the area is large enough to accommodate the event. Conditions have been included to reduce the potential noise impacts expressed by the neighbors. Therefore, staff are recommending option 1 to approve the discretionary use development application with the conditions listed in option 1.
Do you have a motion, please?
Your worship, I move the discretionary use permit discretionary use development permit 2024-012 for an open air concert at 596 18th Street, June 4th through 7th, be approved subject to the conditions as stated.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion. Go ahead.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll just say thank you again for you got all the hard work tonight, Shirley. But a couple things. I appreciate the compromise that's being made on the timing of the live music. I think that's really nice thing to read. And I appreciate all sides of this. We need to do this event. It's good for our community, and the oil show itself is probably one of, if not the biggest events our city's ever seen every other year, or every year when we have other events. So I'm very happy to see this, and I'll definitely be supporting it. Thank you.
Mr. Jackie?
Yeah, I'll echo Councillor Richard's comments. I do live in that area, and I have experienced some of the issues, but it's 3 days a year. And I mean, a windy night causes just as much disruption, and we have no control over that. So given the economic benefits, I don't want us to ever be known as the city who says no and tells businesses what they can and can't do for minor events that bring economic activity to our community.
Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Without the inquiries and announcements, and again, 4th, 5th, and 6th is the oil show. So basically the evening of the 4th, 5th is going to be the main things that are going to be going on. The 5th and 6th is when Mr. Harper's in for dinner time. He'll be sitting there. Mel.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Well, now that election talk has been started, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the citizens of Weyburn for letting me represent them the last 12 years. And as such, I won't be running for re-election in the fall. So I'd just like to announce that. And I would like to encourage the citizens of Weyburn to get informed, ask questions, find out what it is to be a councillor, and consider putting their name on the ballot next fall. So it takes a little bit of time to make that decision. So I wanted to give everybody lots of time to start considering it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have two, Your Worship. First one is directed towards Andrew. I know that we've had conversations in the past around Jubilee Park, the washrooms, the availability to minor baseball and soccer events, and I just wanted to see where the progress was on that this year, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so this year we've made a few changes with our staff capacity in place. So we will be opening we have been opening the washroom located at Jubilee Park daily from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we've also recently started working with minor soccer to open up the community commons access point of the Spark Center. I believe during the week, 5:30 to 7:30 to serve the people using that soccer field as well. So if groups are holding big events and they want to inquire about the use of our washroom facilities, and it might be at a time where we normally would not be open, they just have to reach out and we can work something out to meet their needs.
Excellent. Thank you. The second one, I guess, is just directed towards Jen in regards to potholes and the priorities that the city workers have been putting on them and where they've been working at and that kind of areas.
Yep. So for a focus on potholes, so our crew has been doing a mix of crack sealing, cold mix patching with the infrared, and then full cutout repairs with hot mix. So we have done repairs on Highway 35 North. We have done some larger ones on Sims Avenue. We have been at Douglas Road and 13th Street, and then some various other small locations through the city. We are currently focused, we are doing a little bit on First Avenue, but I will ask the residents for their patience because we are going to be doing a full rebuild on First Avenue from Government Road heading west, and we will be going anywhere from 9th to 13th Street, somewhere in that area. We are asking for the residents' patience because we know we are limping that one along and we know it is really bad, but we do have within the next month, we are going to be tearing that street up and we are doing a full rebuild. So we don't want to invest a lot of money and time into that right now when we know it's coming up on our radar. And the same with Railway Avenue. We are working on what would be kind of the area near Government Road. We are going to be working on Railway Avenue kind of from there to about 4th Street. But with that one, again, we do have a full rebuild planned from 5th to 9th. That one will be a little bit later because we do have a water main that is being replaced from 8th to 10th on Railway. So we will be doing that water main first, then we will be coming back and doing the paving from 5th to 9th. So those are our two key focus areas. As for pothole patching, we're doing a little bit on First. We are also focused on Souris Avenue right now. We've done one night shift on Souris Avenue, kind of going into the wholesale. And then if you will notice the Souris Avenue and Government Road, we do have a lane blocked off there. We are just waiting for the locates to come back and they're going to do a full cutout on that. So anytime we do the full cutouts, we do have to do locates to ensure due diligence. And there are a lot of lines in that area. So they're going to be doing a full cutout and a hot mix patch on that. So we are running some night crews. We had one last week and then we will be running them again this upcoming week. Just on the higher area roads, with vehicles. So where we have a higher volume of vehicles, we will try and do where we will be coming into probably our downtown area and stuff on our night shifts. As well, with the oil show coming, we will be doing some pothole patching and infrared work within the grounds. We will not be doing an extensive amount. It's mainly to address anywhere that we feel is a safety concern for pedestrians. So we will be doing a little work in that area this week as well. So we are out there. We are working hard. We have multiple crews going with multiple different options. We would love if the weather was a little bit warmer and not have rain, because every time we get the rain, it delays us a bit. But the other thing is we do haul our hot asphalt and we need to ensure that the temperature is high enough that when we haul it, it is hot enough to put into our repairs here. So we are basically running them Monday to Friday, full hour shifts, multiple crews. So we definitely have them out there and we understand there's a lot of frustration with the potholes, but we know they're there and we're working really hard to address that issue.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Just a supplemental piece of information, Jen, that I was out and watched the infrared machine in action. It cuts a nice square. I think what's important to note too with that is a much more long-term serviceable solution than the cold mix just being shoveled in and tamped, because it is bonding with the road. So although each pothole may be 20 minutes versus 10 minutes, very likely it's going to be there for a number of years versus just some cold mix shoveled in. Did I articulate that properly?
Yeah, that is correct. And that is the bonus to the infrared, is the infrared actually heats the existing asphalt. So you're not going to see an infrared on what is a massive crater because there's not enough asphalt for it to heat. You're going to see it more over your crack and your alligator crack or your smalling potholes. Where the bigger, more craters, we'll call them, they're going to dig those out, bring hot mix in, and they'll rebuild the base with that crushed concrete and rebuild it. And then Sims Avenue, it took 2 lifts, and then they actually came and heated the edges of that cutout with the infrared and then crack sealed it to try and get longer term. So yeah, this is a lot better option than putting the cold mix in. This actually heats the existing asphalt, and then they can put a rejuvenator in there, and then they are also crack sealing all their edges around it to make sure that these will last a lot longer than the cold mix.
One more question about roads. Sorry to bombard you with this. I think you guys have been doing excellent work. I've seen the truck out and everyone's going hard, and the few places where I've fortunate enough to drive over where you've patched one, it looks like it's working really well. My question about First Avenue, just to make sure that what I understand is correct, so you can either confirm that or correct me. But we have a finite amount of time to get this work done before winter hits again, and we want as many potholes fixed as possible. So any pothole we fix on First Avenue that's going to get redone anyway when it gets repaved is one that doesn't get done someplace else, and we don't want to take those ones into winter if we can possibly avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. And basically with First Avenue too, it's aligning all the crews because we have the lights that need replaced there. We have the milling crew that will come in and mill it out. We will have the curbing crew that will come in and do the replacement of the curbing on the side. And then you have a crew that's going to come rebuild your base. And then you have a crew that's going to come do your asphalt. And then you have a crew that's going to come in and line paint. So the biggest thing is we don't want to, we could probably get a milling crew and we could mill all of First Avenue out. We're not going to do that. We want to keep it as open as possible. And so we want to keep that construction time as minimal as possible. So although I know people are very impatient right now and they want to start it, we're making sure that everything lines up to do as efficiently and effectively as possible so that when we do delay you on that road, it will be as seamlessly as we can possibly make it, weather permitting, because I can never control that. But we do want to make sure that all of the contractors and everybody is lined up so that we can do it as effectively as possible. And you're not going to see big gaps where nobody's working on the road. And we also have to remember, we have to keep access to all those businesses, the hospital and everything. So you will see it in stages to ensure that there's always an access to residents, businesses, and the hospital.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just so it's not just pick on Jen night, I just wanted to say thank you to you and the staff for Household Hazardous Waste Day this past weekend. I don't know if you have any numbers in yet, but how did things go out there?
So we had 92 cars come through. We do not have numbers on what we have disposed of yet because we will get those numbers from GFL and they will send us kind of exactly what was brought in, how it was brought in and everything. We did see much of the rush in the morning, kind of people I think got up, got rid of it, and then went on with their day. We were looking at numbers. This is, we're down about 10 from last year. Year before was kind of on par with the year before that. We saw much larger in 2021, but we didn't host it in 2020. So we feel that maybe part of 2021's uptick of 212 was one of those things where we didn't host it in 2020. So we maybe saw that uptick in 2021 and all the cleaning everybody did in 2020 while they were stuck at home. So it went very well. And obviously it's something we'll continue to do because we highly encourage people, to bring that waste in so it doesn't end up in our water systems and it doesn't end up in our landfill and we can properly dispose of it. So
thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you riding the rodeo?
No, I'm not riding the rodeo. No. Now we'll be good at the rodeo too. So afterwards, I'll be cutting the chain at the One Penny the Oil Show on the 5th, morning of the 5th. At 10 o'clock, and then the premier and a lot of the caucus should be in also those days to sit and talk, and so there'll be quite an event going on, so that all that can be caught when we start having that event. Will kick off. Everything will kick off on with as you said, the rodeo on the evening of the 4th. There'll be it's a bit of a change. They'll have the Bucking Broncos, and then there'll be a supper, so you can buy tickets to the suppers on that. So that will be, we look forward to that, and a lot of the oil show board, you give them a very great big compliment for doing is what they did to get this all set up and ready to go. The July 1st, I guess we're kind of pushing it there, but there's always July 1st events. What else in June are we hosting here? I don't think there's the car show on the 15th. Yes, there's quite a few events going around on here. Riverside, the park is open. Riverside campsite is open again for all those traveling through, and well done on that. And we're out. The crews are all out mowing grass and trying to keep up, even throughout all this rain. It's a tough job because the grass just is flourishing. We haven't seen grass and everything like this growing is good. So it's quite good. And again, a hearty thanks to Mal for all the 8 years working with you. I appreciate your dedication to the city. With that, the notice that there's no notice of motions, and we'll call an adjournment.
So you're not.
If you'd like to share your feedback on the program you just watched, contact us today